8 weeks down, a month and a half to go left in the 2025 college football regular season, and we are here to break down Week 9 of the American Conference slate with you on All-American Inside Studio A alongside Maria Trivelpiece. I'm Kyle Youmans, and of course the American Conference continuing to light up the college football scoreboard. There's not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 American Conference teams that are bowl eligible. One of 2 conferences with at least 5 or more. SEC has 7 of their 16 teams in the bowl eligibility race. And, of course, the American Conference has 5 of 14 teams. It's almost the same percentage when you look at it back and forth.
Yeah, I'm not good with numbers, but I
SEC's a little bit more, but not by a lot.
Right, not by a lot. And I think the big thing with the American, too, Memphis, the first team to be bowl eligible this year, starting off 6-0. And we're going to talk about the Tigers today because what a week it was for them.
Yes, and there is a bit of a wild card thrown into the stack of cards that is the American Conference. Let's take a look at how they stack up right now. The standings still with Navy at the top. They've been at the top all the way through because they are undefeated. The final remaining undefeated team in the American Conference and one of 6 teams that remain undefeated across the FBS level, followed by number 18, South Florida. They take a jump 1 spot in the AP poll this week. Tulane, Memphis, North Texas, East Carolina, all hot on their heels. Even Temple 2-1 in conference play. Can't forget about what the Owls have done to this point, but you have 5 teams bowl eligible at 6-1 or better. And you talked about the Memphis team losing to UAB. We're going to go more in depth of that upset, Maria, in a moment. But I think this deck of cards, as I mentioned it, of the American Conference is still yet to be shuffled. It's like you just got it straight out of the pack. You may have just tested a card or 2 here and there just to see the feel of it, see how you like it.
No bends yet.
No bends quite yet. And then here comes UAB, the older brother, I guess, or whatever you want to call it, coming over to mess with your stack of cards. And he slides a wild card right in the middle of it. Oof. Just as this week, starting in Week 9, that deck of cards is about to be shuffled up like no other because things are about to get crazy in the American Conference, and it already has gotten crazy thanks to Week 8.
I love that analogy. First of all, I'm going to give you credit on that as well. But it's a wild card shuffling in the battle for the bones. We're going to break it down in just a little bit. But you and I were talking before we even came on air, Kyle, and you asked me, how would you even rank the teams in the conference right now? And I honestly can't do it because there's still so many matchups that need to happen because of how good a lot of these American teams are. And we've seen some get tested. We've seen some be tested, maybe fail the test and then bounce back like a North Texas. And so I think that I don't know how to rank them because this deck is about to be shuffled like crazy because that big brother came in and threw the wild card in there.
Threw the wild card into it. Out of those top 5 teams in the American standings, only 2 teams have faced each other so far, and that's the North Texas and South Florida game that we broke down a couple weeks back. That was won by South Florida 63-36. So with all of that being said, just because they haven't played each other yet doesn't mean things can't get a little crazy. They're about to all play each other starting this week with Memphis and South Florida. But let's talk about the Memphis game last week, which turned into the UAB game. The battle for the bones won by UAB. And for those that say, why is this a rivalry? Memphis has dominated over the last few years. They're the better team. Not so fast, says UAB. New quarterback, new head coach, no problem for the Blazers. They get it done 31-24, the final in Birmingham. What a game this turned out to be.
Well, I think I was waiting this entire game for Memphis to do what they normally do when they fall behind, and that's just battle back and find their way back into the game. And it was back and forth this entire game, but that UAB defense held strong. And I know you and I discussed it a little bit, but I think that was what was really impressive for me, but also the quarterback play from Ryder Burton, which we'll break down in just a little bit. And I think UAB came into this game with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. You just mentioned the way that, Memphis has dominated this rivalry the past couple of years, and they're like, no, we want that battle for the Bones Trophy because one of the coolest trophies in college football. I'm just going to say that right now. They wanted it back in Birmingham, and they got it there.
Absolutely, and give credit to interim head coach Alex Mortenson. You talked about the quarterback, Ryder Burton, filling in for Jalen Kitna at the quarterback spot. They pull off the biggest upset of the college football season, and the statistics are there to back that up. Memphis, of course, number 22 in the AP poll that week. They were 31st in ESPN's FPI, the Football Power Index. UAB was 127. 31 lost to 127. That's a 96 spot difference. UAB had the incredible start. They go down and they score, immediately give it back. Sutton Smith takes it 99 yards to the house on a kick return. But then you had a couple big plays toward the end of the half. Iverson hooks. This touchdown grab should be in a statue outside of the UAB stadium. Just immortalize that play specifically with 2 seconds left on the clock. He makes a grab. The throw was incredible. The catch was incredible. And all of that going to what they were able to do momentum-wise going into the third quarter. All of the attention nationally has gone to coach and quarterback, and for good reason. Alex Mortenson deserves a lot of the credit for galvanizing this team and getting them ready for this matchup. Same thing for the quarterback play of Ryder Burton. However, credit to the defensive side for the UAB Blazers, Maria. They were the reason this game was won by UAB.
Well, I think one of the key moments for me was that interception from Royster, where he just came up big with the ball, and then UAB turns it into a touchdown when they get back on offense. And so I think, yes, we talk about the interim head coach, we talk about the quarterback, and rightfully so. Even Iverson hooks offensive player of the week. Like, I think that there's a reason why, right? Because of the way that they performed. But those key moments from the defense, and I know you'll probably talk a little bit more about it, but how about at the end of the game too? The defense stepped up, and that's why the Blazers win this game.
Yeah, I mean, the goal line stand is going to stick out because Memphis had every single opportunity there. But they hurt themselves. At the end of the day, Memphis also shot themselves in the foot in that moment. You had this scenario. Of course, you have the big breakaway from DeWozier, gets called a touchdown initially, reversed because he's down at the 1 yard line. You should just be able to punch it in. First and goal from the 1. This Memphis offensive line, run behind it and go. It should have been a tie ball game, PAT, to tie it very soon. However, false start pushes you back to the 5. 5 yard pass gets you right back to the 1 yard line. All right, cool. Second down and goal. Let's get up there. Let's go back to work. Not the case. False start, different player from the Memphis offensive line. Backs them back up to the 6 yard line. Then it's incomplete pass. Delay of game moves them back to the 11. And then you turn around and you have a low percentage throw on the lob to the back corner of the end zone. That was all set up by the pressure UAB put on them defensively throughout the game, to the point where Memphis knew they had to be perfect on that final goal line stand. And then when the incomplete passes happen, good coverage, bad throw, whatever it may be in those moments, it all was set up because the defense did their job early, holding the nation's top 26 ranked offense to just 362 yards total. Tariq Watson made the play of the game. He had the DeRosier tackle at the 1 yard line, taking down Memphis and forcing that goal line stand to happen. This game is not won by the Blazers if the defense from UAB, which was one of the worst in the FBS, doesn't have their best game of the year. They did, and that's why they ended up with their 5th-ranked win in program history.
And I think, to your point as well, that shows that they can do it, right? So I'm interested to see, how do they continue from this momentum, right? So they have a bye week, and then they're going to play UConn, and so can they continue this? Because I think the one thing that you don't realize as an athlete sometimes is what you're actually capable of, right? And so if you've been at UAB, and I know they have a lot of new faces on the roster as well, but if you've been at UAB and you are used to maybe losing, or maybe the defense, the narrative is that you're not very good, that's all you think of yourself. Now you beat one of the best teams in the country, and you do it in that way. Now you have a schedule coming up with a couple tough teams on there. There's North Texas and South Florida right off the bat. But I can see UAB winning a couple of these games if they play like they did against Memphis.
Well, and I think you found a recipe to win. They outgained Memphis on the day total, 470 to 362, as we mentioned. But they also dominated time of possession. The time of possession was 35 minutes to 25 minutes. And it was UAB that won the time of possession battle. If you can limit the amount of time your defense is on the field, because you already know your defense is not a strong suit for your ball club. That's just plain and simple how UAB was built from the beginning. They had an offensive-minded head coach in Trent Dilfer. Initially, he built this team to be an offensive-minded squad. You got to limit the amount of time your defense is on the field. If they don't have 35 minutes of possession, that means it's 2 or 3 extra possessions for Memphis. All of a sudden, that's the difference in the ball game. Dominate time of possession, establish the ground game like they did in this game, and then take care of the football. You're going to be fine. Even with the tough schedule, they've beaten the best team, at least statistically, on their schedule so far. That's part of it.
Yep.
At least in conference play. I know they played Tennessee earlier in the year. But at least in conference play, they've beaten the best team. So nobody from this point forward, even number 18 South Florida, should not scare UAB. They've just got to play the perfect mindset, perfect game plan all the way through, and then they can have a similar result like they did in this one. Speaking of number 18 South Florida, they had another big win on their hands. How about this? 4-game win streak for the first time since 2018. Oh, and they're 3-0 in conference play. One of those 5 teams that are bowl eligible as they take down the Florida Atlantic Owls 48-13 in this one.
Well, they did everything right. Offensively and defensively, everything was working for South Florida. They executed when they needed to. I think the biggest thing that sticks out with this South Florida team, not only in this game against Florida Atlantic, but the last couple of games, has been their discipline. I think that's something Alex Golish has been preaching. You saw the game that they lost, they weren't as disciplined, and I think they know here they're the better team. How are they going to execute it? They did. Byron Brown looked fantastic, and the defense. I think the defense of South Florida, we talk about it, but I still don't think we talk about it enough. I think they're one of the most physical defenses in the American, and they just make teams pay.
Yeah, they're the most talented and all-around team in the American right now, and it's hard for me to argue that, especially with Memphis being knocked off this week by UAB. And they looked the part at the beginning and at the end against FAU. The bookends of this game, South Florida was dominant. However, we've talked about it at times throughout the year. There have just been lulls in games that USF can't continue to have against the better teams they play. They didn't have it against North Texas, so they've shown games where they can play a complete matchup. But they dominated possession early and left the door open in the second quarter. I'll show you why. Touchdown on the opening drive, 12 plays. They went 11 plays on the next drive, missed a field goal. That's fine. You're going to miss a field goal here and there. Then they go touchdown, 7 plays, 7 plays. You're up 21-3 at that point in time, dominating the football game, but then you punted on 3 straight possessions, and in those 3 possessions, you ran a combined 10 plays. They kept FAU in the game at that point. FAU gets back within 21-13, and they have the ball. You know what happens from that point forward, though?
Tell me.
USF shows South Florida is a good football team, and they do what good football teams do. They shut the door. When they leave it open just a crack, they slam it shut. Here's how they ended the game after it was 21-13, and they forced a punt from Florida Atlantic. Field goal, touchdown, field goal on their final 5 possessions of the football game. If FAU had a shot to make it a game, it was that drive. It was that opportunity when it was 21-13. They had the football. Instead, they get forced to punt, and from that point forward, South Florida took control of that game, and they never looked back.
I think the big thing that Alex Golish preaches a ton is accountability, and I think if you look back at their Charlotte game where they left the door open way longer and way larger than just a crack, the guys in the locker room know that, right? Yeah. And so he kind of talks about that player-led team, and they're able to shut it down. He talked about it in his press conference this week, the way that they're able to hold each other accountable, and I think that's why they can slam the door shut. Now, they did it against Charlotte. It was open, I'm going to say, like 4 times a crack. Like maybe, so like this much.
Okay.
We're going
like
with
a wedge.
Yeah, a wedge. We're going with analogies.
Uh-huh.
So now they shorten it against Florida Atlantic to this much.
Yeah.
Now when they play the better team, like this one that they have coming up this week, there can't be any door openings at all, because this is a Memphis team that they're going up against who just lost to UAB, who is going to want to bust down any door. Even if the door is closed, they want to kick it in. Look at us with analogies today.
We're 2 games into this, and our analogy game is off the charts.
We've done math.
Keeping with the door theme, it's off the hinges right now when it comes to these analogies. I love it. And I think you're completely right. Of course, this game doesn't have the same college game day potential that it did if Memphis takes care of business against UAB. That's fine, because when you look at these 2 programs, there is still so much on the table when it comes to college football playoff implications, because the American Conference is the conference that is setting the tone when it comes to group of 5 playoff considerations. This is a first chance for Memphis to play spoiler. Even if they don't make a run to the college football playoff, which would take a little bit of help in order to get them there in the first place, they can still play spoiler against South Florida, against Tulane, against Navy, and their strength of schedule lower than what North Texas has. Yes, you can look that up, by the way. I know we've talked about North Texas's strength of schedule. Memphis is just as poor, if not worse, compared, depending on which website or which strength of schedule you decide to look at. But in this current landscape of what college football is, I don't think Memphis is completely out of the conversation.
I don't think so.
But they've got to win games like this.
Yeah.
And they've got to win it in dominating fashion to leave no doubt. So, yes, Memphis is upset. This whole program is very talented. We've talked about it week after week after week, and we know why. But South Florida is ready for the challenge, too, and they've shown that they aren't afraid of any environment. They aren't afraid of any situation. They've taken advantage of two really big-time road environments at Florida, at North Texas. They can do it again against Memphis this week.
And they haven't, USF has not won at Memphis since 2016. And that was something that Alex Golish emphasized when he was talking to his players, because he's thinking about it, right? But they've gone on the road. Like you said, they've played in big road environments. I think this is going to be such a fun matchup. When you take a look at these two teams, based on everything that we just said, give me your keys for South Florida to beat Memphis and then vice versa.
That's a good one. I think if you're South Florida, you got to take care of the football. And I think there are South Florida fans out here that watch the show and probably agree with me. The amount of turnovers that they've had throughout the season, even against North Texas and even in some of those wins earlier in the year, they don't take care of the football in spurts of time. If you can take care of the football against a hungry and fast and strong Memphis defense, I think you'll win this football game across the board. And if you're Memphis, you got to get started early and then rely on your ground game. I mean, the ground game, DeWosier is one of the best running backs in the conference. And I like Brandon Lewis at quarterback. I like their offense across the board. We've talked about them too. I think you have to get the ground game going against South Florida, because it's kind of like what I said earlier. Time of possession is important, and you got to win the time of possession battle against a team like the Bulls in order to give yourself an opportunity. So all of those things. And of course, you also have the possibility of not having Lewis.
Right.
So if you establish a ground game one way or the other, then you're going to have some success either way. Keep that in mind going into it. So for South Florida, turnovers. For Memphis, establish the ground game and strike fast.
Summed that up pretty well.
Thank you.
I'm really proud of you. That was fantastic. You know, there's a team in our conference who maybe sums things up not as perfectly, but they still find ways to get wins, and that's the Tulane Green Wave, and they found another way to get a win this week.
34 seconds left. 1st and 10, the Army 26. Retzloff looking to throw. Fires left sideline, and it's zipped up in the air, and bubble to the end zone. It's caught! It's caught! Touchdown, Shaz Preston!
Unbelievable!
Oh, the circus grab for the go-ahead score with 27 seconds to play!
That was unbelievable to watch on TV, but it was probably more unbelievable to watch from the sideline. So we welcome in the sideline reporter for the Tulane Green Wave, Maddy Hudak. Maddy, give us a little synopsis of what was going through your mind. I mean, as your heart was palpitating when you were watching that play happen.
Sure, yeah. So I've been really lucky to actually have perfect vantage points several times. I heard a lot of people say they couldn't see the final bobble by Shaz Preston, but I was kind of standing right in the end zone. You see Jake Retzloff throw into double coverage, which was a little stressful at first. Then it gets batted up in the air by, I think, a defender and Shaz Preston. Then Shaz takes a few steps into the end zone, gets a hand on it again, and you're just thinking there's no way that he's going to be able to come up with this. And then it just kind of perfectly stopped in his hands. He took 3 credible steps with absolutely no movement with the ball. And I don't think, because it was so crazy, it really didn't set in that was what would end up being the game-winning touchdown for Tulane.
Oh, it was an unbelievable moment after what was really an unbelievable game up to that point. And I know you follow Tulane week after week after week. Have you gotten your blood pressure checked anytime recently, Maddy? Because they seem to take it down to the wire every time they get the opportunity, but they still find a way to win these football games. What does that say about the resilience of this squad and how crazy this season has been so far?
Well, I grew up a Saints fan, and I feel like in the past, at least, they used to give you a little more heart palpitations when they were more competitive. But yeah, this has been a really interesting season of a lot of these games coming down to the wire here. But when you look back, honestly, at a lot of the successful seasons Tulane's had, including the Cotton Bowl year, they weren't really as many overwhelming victories that season as you would have thought. And I think a team really learns a lot about themselves when they have to grind things out. It's really easy to blow out teams, go sit down halfway through the game like they did when they blew out USF, UAB, all these teams back to back last year. But I think really having to make each minute of the football game matter. And that was the first game for them where if you don't score and make a stop here, your guys are going to lose the game. And so it was really important, I think, to see that this Green Wave team, this very new Green Wave team, had such a great response in that moment.
No, I think you're spot on when it comes to it. It doesn't matter how you get it done. It's the fact that you do ultimately get it done. And when we talked about this game as a preview last week, we talked about keys to the game for Army, and that was control time of possession, be physical, and create red zone turnovers. And that's ultimately what happened in this football game. They checked the box, Army did, in every way to try and make this a game. How did Tulane stay in position in your eyes in order to win the game at the end? Because Army executed their game plan. Tulane seemingly did not, but they were still the one that ultimately ended up on top.
Yeah, I think, again, just this team being able to really see things out and believe in themselves that you don't necessarily know when the most important play is coming in a football game. And so you really have to play every single snap thinking that might be the case. And I think, again, when you saw this defense that wasn't able to really make a stop on third or fourth down all game long, when the game really came down to it, being able to really force that 3 and out on Army. But going into it, you knew there was really not a chance that you would get the ball back that many times. I was actually surprised that Tulane decided to defer it at first, thinking they might want to kind of take that lead because the entire first quarter was pretty much wound down by Army. Yeah. And then when you think about the fact that Tulane and what it takes to stop a triple option, needing that first and second level of your defense really to perform well, Tulane loses Dixon Agu, one of their starting linebackers for the season, against Tulsa, and then Sam Howard, the other starting linebacker, and really one of the heart and souls and leaders of this team, a guy that played and lost to Army last year and really felt that. When we learned on Monday that he was going to be out, and Chris Rogers and Mekhi Williams, who were really coming into the season as 3 and 4 guys, were going to really, play pretty much 1 and 2 that whole game. You kind of expected a little bit of struggles on the defensive side, just not having that second level. But I think, again, you've really seen a team that believes in themselves, that might not be the prettiest, but they have toughness. And I think that ultimately that came to matter when really it all came down to the final 2 minutes of that game.
Yeah, I give a lot of credit to that defense with the way that they played, especially you talked about the opening drive that took up nearly the entire first quarter for Army. 18 plays, 11 minutes and 44 seconds of gameplay, and then they missed the field goal. So they come up empty despite what that drive was. If not, Maria, I think Army probably sets the tone exactly how they want. They go down, put points on the board, even if it was the field goal. But an 18-play drive with points there, I think, changes the entire complexion of what that football game could have been.
And I think you bring up a good point. And, Maddy, I want to go back to something that you were saying right at the beginning, the way that this team does have to play every single minute of the football game and dig a little bit deeper. But what do you think it is at the end of games when they dig as deep as they possibly can that enables them to come out on top? Because it's one thing to have to play through all those games and maybe it's not pretty, but it's a whole different level to actually win at the end.
Yeah, I think, again, when you look back at how this season's unfolded for Tulane, the fact that they haven't really dominated since week 1, I think really worked in their favor when it came to this Army game, where when they played against South Alabama, that was an ugly one for Tulane. They had to really grind that one out towards the end of the game. Duke kind of came back at the end of the game. They had to really remain in that one. The Ole Miss game, I continue to go back to that third quarter performance, especially by the defense, where they held them to a shutout and you saw something really get going on the offensive side. But being able to really, again, see that response in those moments, and then to open conference play, there was a little bit of adversity at the start of the Tulsa game. They scored off a flea flicker, then they had an onside kick, and then suddenly, there was kind of a 14-0 hole that Tulane had to climb out of, but they just keep climbing out of it. And so, again, I think it's just that experience from earlier in this year, and then it's guys on this team. In this age of college football, there's barely any guys left that were even in West Point last year, but it's, to me, not a coincidence that the final 2 guys in that contest that really had to get things done were Bryce Bohannon and Shaz Preston, 2 guys that are some of the top leaders on this team and really showed that out there on the field. I think when you can really show how much you can lead on and off the field like that from those key guys, it makes everyone else rally around you.
So based on what you're saying, the leaders are there, that little extra oomph and the way that they're so resilient is there. So when you take a look at this team, how far do you think they can go? Like, how much success can Tulane have?
Well, and I will say the player leadership thing, it kind of popped out to me in this last game. And I do think there was almost a value in losing a leader like Sam Howard, because I think some guys kind of get, almost complacent or, oh, there's another guy that's speaking up. And so I don't really have to. And I think you saw guys that might have been quieter realize that they really needed to step into that void and did so in a great way in that game. The fact that Chris Rogers, that was Sam Howard's backup, was the leading tackler, and Mekhi Williams was the fourth leading tackler. I think just, again, that next man up mentality and that belief in themselves. But I think that's when you look at how far this team can go this season, is just kind of, again, those small moments like that where you've seen guys that really had to step up when it counted into must-win leadership critical roles do so. And so I think that game to me kind of showed, you heard some comments about Coach Summerall saying after the ECU win that this was an immature, sloppy team and he didn't really know if they had it in them. I think you can't really say that anything other than this team has it in them in those final 2 minutes.
A bye week this week for Tulane. It's already their second bye week, and then it is a full sprint to the finish, really, with 3 road games, including at UTSA, at Memphis, and then at Temple. What's the toughest part of the remaining schedule here, Maddy, that Tulane has to keep an eye on moving forward?
I mean, I do think it just automatically is the next 2 games for them, but it's the fact that UTSA is such a dangerous team at home compared to a road environment. And I just always get worried. I think that Tulane, they had almost all of their games at 11 a.m. last year. And I just think it's such a schedule throw off when you have to travel and play a night game in the middle of the week, especially coming off of a bye like this and perhaps kind of an emotional ending to the Army win. You always kind of worry about those. But then, I think a lot of this season kind of rests on that game against Memphis, where they also showed how easy it is for destiny to no longer be in your hands. And so with Memphis falling to UAB, it kind of shows that every next game is the most important game, but that's a foe that you think Tulane's really going to contend for a championship spot against. And so for that reason, I do just kind of think these next 2 matchups hold quite a bit of weight. But then you saw last year what happens when you can't finish. And I think Tulane equally has to finish and win out in those final 3 games.
Can't wait to watch how Tulane continues their run this season. 3-0 in conference play. Again, they continue to win their early games in the conference slate, and everything's still on the table for the Tulane Green Wave. Maddy Hudak joining us here on All-American. Maddy, thanks so much for hopping on again. Be sure to catch her on the Tulane Sports Network coming up this week, or actually next week at UTSA, as that'll be a fun road matchup. Maddy, thanks again.
Great. Thank you, guys, and roll wave.
All right. Maddy Hudak joining us. And Maria, whenever it comes to this Tulane team and winning on the road against UTSA is going to be coming off of a bye week as well. They've got to have some level of bounce back of what happened against North Texas this week. A final score 55-17. North Texas rebounds from their loss against South Florida in a massive fashion, and they secure bowl eligibility, one of those 5 teams that we mentioned earlier. Eric Morris and company, they flex their muscles a little bit in this one.
And, Kyle, going into this game, I didn't foresee this happening. I thought this would be a much closer matchup between UTSA and North Texas, because UTSA, we talked about them a lot. I think they have the pieces to be a good football team. And even the way they started the game, Robert Henry breaks away on a run, and it looks like, man, they did score first. They're going to set the tone, and defensively, they've been getting better every single week. And so for me, I was like, okay, this is going to be a game. But that offense for North Texas is just so dangerous. You have Drew Mestemaker, who is playing like a quarterback, as a lot of his coaches say, can play on Sundays, right?
Yeah.
And then you have Caleb Hawkins, who is just does not look like a true freshman. And then you even had Wyatt Young getting involved this weekend as well. And so when you have that many different weapons, it just makes it really hard for defenses to stop. And in addition to that, I think the thing that stands out to me the most about North Texas is just how fast they play offensively.
Yeah.
They're just go, 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 go. I know when I'm reporting on their games, I have to really be strategic about when I want to sell stories, because I usually don't have enough time to tell them in between, because they just get like set so quickly, and you can't tell those stories. So I don't know. They just really impressed me this week with the way that they bounced back from that South Florida loss.
Yeah, and the way they bounced back from, like you said, UTSA driving down the field, breaking the big play with Robert Henry Jr., using the tight ends in the red zone like they have throughout Jeff Traylor's tenure at UTSA. But then you had just Eric Morris's scheme take over. The layers and the elements of this scheme, the wide receivers, the running backs, the balance on the offensive side was too much for the UTSA defense to sort through. And we know UTSA has struggled on the defensive side of the ball at times, but they were coming off of a game against Rice where they clicked and everything felt right. This was not the same performance from the Roadrunners. UNT rattles off 17 unanswered, including 2 touchdowns to Wyatt Young, who was questionable going into the game. He wasn't even fully available, at least thought to be. He was questionable. He comes in, has 2 touchdowns in the first half, and then he has 1 more later on. The biggest turning point for me, though, was how North Texas dominated the 8s. That was where they struggled against South Florida. I mentioned it last week on the show, and they absolutely took care of business. They allowed the UTSA touchdown with 5:22 left in that second quarter. Both teams punt after 3 and out, so a couple changes of possession. UNT gets the ball back. They go full 2-minute drill, driving down the field, completing passes. Caleb Hawkins takes over. Then you have the Kiefer Sibley leap to the pylon with 6 seconds left on the board, 9 seconds left on the board, and they get that play done. They get that touchdown right into it. And then they begin the second half with the 8-play, 75-yard touchdown drive. They take full control from that point forward. 3 fumbles from UTSA later. North Texas has a 45-17 lead at the end of the third. This was an all-around performance from Eric Morris and the North Texas Mean Green. And here's the thing. I think I learned more about North Texas after this win against UTSA than I did about North Texas in the loss against South Florida. And I thought it would be probably reversed because South Florida's the better team. That was the benchmark game. That was the high-profile game with the atmosphere that lived up to the hype all the way through. This was not as much of that. It was a homecoming game for North Texas, trying to see how they would rebound. And boy, did they prove it. Their first taste of adversity, and Eric Morris's team played quite possibly their best all-around game of the year. That tells me a lot about how the mental makeup of this football team is and how they're able to put that adversity behind them in the rearview mirror and focus on the task at hand and moving forward. I think if you're a North Texas fan, and despite what happened in the South Florida game, you should be extremely excited about how they responded against UTSA, who has had their own fair share of struggles, let's be completely fair, throughout all of this. But 55-17 is an impressive outing against the conference foe, and they put together an incredible outing in that matchup. And it's their first win against their in-state rival since 2021, and that's something to celebrate.
Well, I asked Eric Morris coming into this game, like, what was the week of practice like after that South Florida loss? And he was talking about on Monday, he just kind of got after the guys. And then he said Tuesday was the best practice that they might have had all year long. He said Wednesday, then it went back. He got on the guys more than probably he did the entire season. And then Thursday and Friday, it was just another 2 good days of practice. And speaking to some of the players as well, I think the thing that they kept talking about was they knew what they did wrong in that South Florida loss. And I think that that's the difference between this North Texas team and North Texas teams in the past, is that accountability where the coaches know they're holding those players to those standards, but the players know themselves. And so they're rising to the standard that Eric Morris and his staff are setting. And so they knew that this was going to be a big turning point, a big kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a big moment in their season, I guess.
Yeah.
How they respond against UTSA, and they did so, as you said, very impressively.
I think that's the case, and that's why I was so impressed with this win. And, of course, UTSA is not happy about it. They haven't had the season that they anticipated. And even you could tell this was a rivalry even after the fact. UTSA, in their recap on their website, wasted no time, took 2 sentences for them to remind everybody that, hey, this is the first time North Texas has beat UTSA since 2021. But if you look at those outings from 2021 on, North Texas has actually outscored UTSA in those matchups 60-54 since that win when UTSA was undefeated and number 22 in the country back in 21 at that point, Apogee Stadium. UNT's taking care of business despite some of those 4 straight losses. It was 4 points, 21 points, 8 points, 21 points. North Texas's 2 wins against UTSA was by 22 in 2021 and then by 38 this year in a dominating fashion. It was a lot of fun to watch. And if you're a fan of North Texas, like I said, rally around this team because you got a game against Charlotte on Friday this week. Then you turn around and, oh, that's a big one. Ooh. Navy quite possibly will be 7-0, 8-0 by the time that game happens. We'll see what happens when it comes to how they're able to take care of business. I don't want to jinx anything for the midshipmen. But Are you kidding? There's going to be a 7-0 Florida Atlantic team taking on a possibly 7-1 North Texas team. That's a huge matchup at DAQ Stadium again.
Yeah, Navy and North Texas is just one that I have had circled on my calendar for the past 2 weeks, I would say, because I think that Navy is a team we've talked about a lot, right? They're undefeated, but we haven't seen them play the top teams in the league. So sometimes we don't forget about them. We know that they're right there front of mind, but I want to talk about them more. So I want to see them be challenged. And I think in the month of November, we'll talk about it probably in upcoming shows. Navy has a gauntlet of a schedule, and North Texas is one of those teams in that gauntlet. So everything's in front of North Texas right now, especially after that loss, Memphis losing to UAB. And so I think that this is going to be a very interesting month of November in the American.
Absolutely. Florida Atlantic this week for Navy, as we talked about. Then you've got North Texas, Notre Dame, South Florida, bang, bang, bang. We've talked about that multiple times throughout the season. One of the toughest slates in the conference. Oh, by the way, then they got a bye week, and then they play Memphis.
Oh, okay.
Yikes. What a schedule for
you
Navy.
Mean that's not easy?
No, it's not. No, not at all. All right, let's get into the Temple Owls. They have not had a season like this since 2019. They have rattled off some wins here. Casey Keeler's squad doing their job and celebrating in the locker room as well.
Oh, special one. Coach Keeler just won his 275. And top 20 all time.
Got to give props where props are due, Casey Keeler.
Now we dance. You know what? That's becoming one of my favorite things about Temple is every time they win, they do dance. And you talk about the buy-in that Casey Keeler gets from this program. Now he has the guys saying it as well. He said that in his post-game with me after he beat UTSA. Oh, now it's time to dance. And now you have your quarterback saying it as well. So it must be trending in at Temple. So I don't know.
That's what the T stands for, is trending.
Trending?
Yeah.
Really?
No,
okay.
it's not.
All
It
right.
stands for Temple.
Anyway,
Let's talk about this matchup. Temple's first road conference win since that 2019 season, and they did it in dominating fashion. How about the dive at the goal line, getting the scoring started? Charlotte showed some stuff early. I want to give credit to the 49ers. We haven't talked about them much this season just because they haven't had the wins stacked up throughout the year, but they had a defensive stop on the opening drive. Then they responded after Temple scored on the opening and scoring drive themselves, and they turned around and had an opportunity, but then it was Temple all the way through that took care of business. Game really turned with Adrian Lang's pick six in the second quarter. Charlotte was driving. They took the air out of the building from the defensive side of the football, put the Owls up 21-7, and it was over from that point.
Yeah, they just kind of looked like the better team throughout this entire matchup. And you see Evan Simon in the locker room giving that post-game speech. He actually spoke earlier in the week to some of the media about that loss to Navy, right? And he was speaking about just how do you get over that loss? Somebody asked him, or it was something along those lines, and he said, well, you do that by like causing pain to another team, and that's what they were going to do against Charlotte. And so Evan Simon and this offense stepping up, and I think the fact that it's, you know, the first road win for them since 2019 in a conference game just speaks to what the culture is building in Philadelphia, and it's been really exciting to watch. And I think the fact that they lose a tough one to Navy and then they can respond as well, I love that from them, and yeah, I'm excited to see what this Temple team does throughout the rest of the season.
And they've got a tough slate too. We just talked about how Navy's got a couple of tough matchups coming up. I mean, Temple's got Tulsa, East Carolina, Army, and then a bye week followed by Tulane and North Texas. So it's not going to be easy for Temple as well. But if you can beat a team 49-17 on the road, that shows you have some oomph. You have some ability here. And Temple's doing things they haven't done in quite some time. It's the first time since 2018 that Temple has scored at least 28 points in the first half on 3 separate occasions this season. That's consistency, and that's what you want to see if you're Casey Keeler at this point in the season is, yes, you're going to win games here and there in college football, but to do it in a dominant fashion consistently is something we haven't seen at the likes of the Temple Owls as well. They've got a matchup this week against Tulsa that you got to keep an eye on, though. Tulsa's coming off of a bye week. They're hungry for their first conference win of the 2025 campaign. And we've talked about the Golden Hurricane a couple times throughout the season as well. They need to have a nearly perfect game and game plan of execution this week, because I think Temple's the more talented team, but I also don't think you should count out Trey Lamb and the Golden Hurricane, because they're still trying to get back to what they showed in non-conference play and establish that they are still here, even though it's year one for them as well.
I don't think you can ever really count out Tulsa, because I think that I've been so impressed with them in Trey Lamb's first year, and I know that their record doesn't necessarily show a ton of positive things, but I think they have a lot of pieces, especially on the offensive side of the ball, with Baylor Hayes, Dominic Richardson, and I think that they can hurt you if you let them. You can't take Tulsa lightly, and I think that they're also very hungry. I think when we talk about the buy-in at Temple and how those players are just rallying behind Casey Keeler, I think Trey Lamb's another first-year head coach here in the American that his players really like, and so I think that if you're Temple, yes, I think they have more talented players right now, but I think Tulsa has a lot of good pieces, and once they start clicking, and I think with a coach like Trey Lamb and the staff that he's put around him, I think they will click. I think it's a matchup that you can never really count the Golden Hurricane out. And so I think I'm very excited for this matchup. I'll be on the sidelines for this one. So there's my little plug to tune into ESPN+.
Now you have to watch.
Now you have to watch, because there's a lot of really cool storylines surrounding
and
this
I
game.
will be on the call. No, I'm just kidding. I'm on a different game this
He's
week.
on a different game, but we'll eventually get back on a call together. I'm manifesting it into the universe. But for now, Temple, Tulsa, I think I was looking at the weather too. Looks not great, so that could play a factor as well. I know. We're many days out. I really hope it doesn't rain. But yeah, so I just think it's going to be a fun matchup, especially in the American, a team that's really looking for a win, a team coming off a big win. So Temple, Tulsa, 3:30 Eastern time on ESPN+.
Well, and let's talk about Tulsa's loss this week to East Carolina, because it was a midweek game, and it was someone that the blackout, the night of the boneyard is what they called it in Greenville. This was sweet, by the way. We talked about North Texas and their blackout a couple weeks ago. We talked about South Florida's black unis earlier in the year. But my goodness, East Carolina was showing out with the all-black unis, and they played well. Look good, play good. That was the case for the Pirates in a midweek matchup against Tulsa in this one.
Look good, feel good, play good. I had a teammate in college who wore bright pink lipstick and like beautiful giant pink bows every game, and she rocked it. And her philosophy was that I'm going to do a full face, I'm going to put on the lipstick, and I'm going to play well because of it, because you have to look good, you got to feel good, and then you play good. And she was A10 Pitcher of the Year in 2018, maybe?
Yeah, that
I got to
works
go
out.
back and look. So it worked out. So I'm going to always believe in that. The cleats there as well, and for the Pirates, it worked as well. They looked good, they felt good, and they played pretty well too.
So since you're talking about softball, I want to talk about the home run ball that East Carolina was hitting on all cylinders. They win this game 41-27. But how about the connection between Caton Hauser and Anthony Smith? We've talked about it all year long. Anthony Smith, and I've said it over and over, and he just continues to prove me right. And I love it, Anthony. Keep after it. He is one of the biggest deep threats in all of college football. He goes 4 receptions. How would you think 4 receptions would go in a game? Probably 45, 50 yards, right? That's a good game.
Yeah.
No, he went 4 receptions for $150 and 2 tubs. How about that? That's 37 and a half. Don't forget that half. Yards per catch in a matchup like this, a career high. Of course, he had 136 earlier in the campaign against Coastal Carolina. That was a 38-0 win for East Carolina in that one. This one, another big win coming off of the loss to Tulane in the middle of the year. I keep saying it. I think East Carolina is right on the fringe of being a top team in this conference. They had the early loss to BYU. That was their first of the year. They had the early loss in conference play to Tulane. They've got a tough matchup coming up over the next couple of weeks as well. However, I think you've got a weapon at Hauser at quarterback. You've got an incredible weapon as Smith outside. And then if you can fill in the gaps, they're going to put up 40 points a game like they did against Tulsa this week.
We always say Memphis is lurking on this show, but East Carolina is my lurking team. And I might have said that in previous weeks. I don't think I have. But for me, East Carolina is just lurking. They were right there in that loss to Tulane. And I think they have some really good pieces. I really like what Blake Harrell does. Defensively, I think we don't give them enough credit because we talk a lot about Caton Hauser and Anthony Smith. But they're just lurking, and I think that they can cause some problems in this later half of the season in the American.
Absolutely, and it's going to be fun to watch what they've got going on, because if you look at their upcoming schedule, East Carolina already at 4-3, bye week this week, then you go at Temple, against Charlotte, against Memphis, and then you round out with UTSA and Florida Atlantic. That Memphis game is the one that I'm circling on the calendar, but I think East Carolina has a benefit of taking this week off going into that Temple matchup because they have to go to Philly for that game. I think that's one of the sneaky best games in the conference this year because it's two teams that are in the middle of the pack. They're probably not that top 5 caliber team yet, like we mentioned with with Tulane, North Texas, with South Florida, Memphis, and Navy right now. East Carolina's trying to join that conversation. Temple trying to join that conversation. They haven't done it yet. This is a game that you can prove it, that you belong there.
I think that game's going to answer a lot of questions for me because exactly what you just said. They're in that. I would count them both in like the middle upper because they're not the top right now. But I think whoever wins that game makes an argument to be in that top part of the conference. So that's definitely one that I'll be circling as well. Yeah.
East Carolina rounding out their season against Florida Atlantic. Let's preview the Florida Atlantic Navy matchup. It's a contrast in style this week on the offensive side of the football, especially between FAU and Navy. FAU, one of the quickest working offenses in the country, taking on Navy, which is, just like we talked about with Anthony Smith a moment ago, one of the biggest big play threats on offense in college football as well. How do you see this one playing out between two teams that play different brands of football, and Navy, of course, being undefeated to start the year?
Well, I think it's all about the offenses, as you just said, but two different kinds of offenses. And I think if Florida Atlantic wants to have a chance in this game, then they can't let the Navy offense wear them down, because we see so many times with Navy, yes, their offense is very good, but teams can sometimes stop it early in the games. But the way that they just continue to run, and then they throw the big home run ball once in a while, that's what causes teams to eventually fall. And we saw it in the Temple game too. Navy coming back in that second half because they just continuously ran down the Temple defense. Now, I think that the Navy defense might be a little bit better than the Florida Atlantic defense, so I think that's where there might be a little bit of a discrepancy. But with the way that the Florida Atlantic offense has potential to play, they can have an opportunity to beat Navy in this one. But I really think it's just going to come down to, can Florida Atlantic not allow Navy to wear them down? And I think Navy just does such a good job of that. And I think for Navy is you just need to play the game that you normally play.
Yeah.
Keep throwing in those different wrinkles every week offensively. Rely on Blake Horvath, Eli Hyde, and Reich, and I think you put yourself in a really good position to win this one.
Yeah, and there were good things that Florida Atlantic did in that loss to South Florida. I talked about how they had the door open, they had the opportunity, and South Florida just ran away with it late and took care of business. I don't know if Navy's as well-rounded of a team, and I think Florida Atlantic's going to put up some points. So whichever defense has the better day, probably from the turnover battle, that's going to be the better game or the better performance across the board, because I think whenever it comes to Navy, their offense is going to put up points. When it comes to Florida Atlantic, their offense is going to put up points. If Florida Atlantic's defense can stand tall for at least a couple possessions, that's how the Owls are going to remain close in this matchup. Navy, they've won 9 consecutive games going back to last year, which is tied for the second longest active streak in the country. Ohio State has the longest one, and they're ranked number 1 in the nation. Navy hasn't gotten the same respect quite yet.
Nope.
And of course, they're not the same team as Ohio State, but they're just barely receiving votes in the AP Top 25. They're one of 6 teams that are undefeated in the country. I think it's about time Navy earns some respect. Take care of business this week, sets up a monumental matchup with North Texas the week after that, and then all of a sudden I think we're talking about Navy as a top 25 team, possibly gaining some momentum as a group of 5 possibility when it comes to the college football playoff, and that's when things can get really interesting.
They need more respect, and I'm excited to see it. I think that it's just it's been so silent in the college football landscape of not talking about Navy, and I'm kind of getting sick of it. So
absolutely.
In the next couple of weeks, hopefully we'll be saying their name in the top 25 poll. So we'll get there eventually.
Eventually. We will make it happen eventually. All right, Jim Mora and the UConn Huskies. I haven't talked about them because They're not in the American Conference. Why are we talking about the UConn Huskies? Well, get used to it. They're playing 3 of their next 5 games against American Conference foes, including this week against the Rice Owls. Huskies 5-2, playing Rice, UAB, and FAU over the next 5 weeks. Rice coming off of a bye week that came at the perfect time for the Owls. They got to get that offense jump-started.
Yep.
What have you seen out of this matchup whenever we go into this one in Week 9?
Well, I think this UConn team under Jim Mora last year was already starting to show signs that they're better than they have been in years past. And this year they're 5-2. They have a P4 win against Boston College. And so I think that they're a quality football team. I think Rice, exactly what you just said. We need to see that offense fire. And if Chase Jenkins is healthy, if he's good to go, then that's what's going to help Rice in this situation. But they just haven't been able to kind of get that triple option how they want to see it, as Scott Abels ran it in years past. But I think that it's just a learning curve, right? And when they're able to do it, they do it really well. So in those moments where they had the big wins and in those moments where they've done a good job of holding offenses at bay, I think Rice is in a good spot. I don't really know how this one plays out just yet, because I think I need to see UConn play American teams a little bit more to kind of comprehend the kind of football program they are.
I think that's the case. Of course, you look at the discrepancy whenever it comes to passing yards per game and rushing yards per game. Both of these teams can run the football, but only one team has really taken advantage of red zone opportunities and the lack of turnovers. I mean, UConn's only had the 1 turnover throughout the season, and they're much better on 3rd down as well than Rice. So if you're looking at this from Scott Abel's perspective, it's a chance for you to get back on track, try some new things on the offensive side of the football. You might see some different personnel groupings, a couple different individuals that might get more playing time this week. Not necessarily anything major from a switch, but I still think Rice has to click because they haven't had more than 21 points of offense since defeating Charlotte on September 18th. That's more than a month from where we are now. So I think Rice, this is your kind of get-right game. Not that UConn's a team that you can get right against. I think the Huskies are a formidable opponent, but you've got to do it in non-conference play in one of the final non-conference action that you'll see this year, because then you've got Memphis, UAB, a bye week, then North Texas and South Florida. 3 of your next 4 games in conference play are against 3 of the top teams in the conference as a whole. You got to do it now.
Yeah, it's a not win or go home, but basically it's a must-win game. It's a you want to win this game if you're Rice.
If you want to get to a bowl game, you probably need to win this game.
You need to win this game.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to put it. And I think coming off the bye week, it gives you an opportunity, as you said, to get right and get after the Huskies.
And we do have some teams that are off this week too, because
Right.
Rice coming off of a bye week. So we take a look at our full schedule here on All-American. Army, Tulane, UAB, East Carolina, and UTSA all off. So we only have 1 schedule page to give you this week.
That's so sad.
That's disappointing.
I know, that's okay. That means we'll have multiple pages in the future, right?
That's true.
Yeah,
That's fair.
it's always the silver lining.
That's good. That's a good way to look at it.
And we could say we're going to be watching all of these games.
Absolutely. Starting on Friday, North Texas, Charlotte. We talked about that matchup a little bit. Of course, the game of the week, Kyle's game of the week, sound the alarm. It's South Florida and Memphis. It's got to be, because Memphis trying to rebound after the loss against UAB last week. South Florida trying to establish themselves as legitimate contenders in the college football playoff conversation, as they already have, but they got to keep that momentum rolling. Can't afford that second loss. Things are going to get real interesting, and it starts with that matchup this week.
I couldn't agree more. I have that one quadruple circled, and I'll also have it quadruple circled for Temple Tulsa, because I have to do deep dive prep into it because I'm on the game. So
you got to work that game.
Yeah, we had to work that one, but all the games we'll have our eyes on because it's American Conference football.
So now that we've seen the entire slate in terms of what Week 9 looks at, let's go back to what Week 8 had for us on All-American, and one of the craziest moments and craziest upsets in all of college football.
3rd down and 5. Play action. Burton took a shot as an open man. Hawks for a touchdown! Number 3! A star is born in Birmingham.
And that star joins us right now, quarterback Ryder Burton from UAB after a massive win over number 22 Memphis this past week. And Ryder, first, thanks for taking some time. I know your cell phone's probably still ringing off the hook after an incredible upset this past weekend. What have the last few days been like for you as you take over the starting job for this matchup and then, of course, have the success that you did on Saturday?
Well, first off, thank y'all for having me on. It's truly a pleasure. In terms of the start, I got my usual few texts, from coaches in high school, my parents, family members, stuff like that. But when you go out and you handle business the way you're supposed to in my position, I just found out there's a few more texts that start flying in from people that you didn't even realize you'd get text from. So my phone's been a pretty crazy place, the past couple days, but according to other guys that I'm pretty close with that play the position, just get used to it. So that's pretty much how it's been.
That's awesome. What's the craziest person that has texted you or like most out there person that has texted you? You don't have to give names, but just give us a general synopsis.
There are some very busy previous people I played for, and they found time to text me. And I'm like, I know you're getting ready for a big-time opponent this week, so I didn't think necessarily that they would catch a score or catch that I played. So, but yeah, I mean, just some guys that I previously played
That's
before.
awesome.
I love that. Now, Ryder, we're going to talk about the game in just a second, but I want to talk a little bit about how you found out you were going to be starting this game and then your parents' travel to the game, because I heard it was a little bit crazy.
Yeah. About Wednesday afternoon after practice, I was like, okay, Kit's still beat up a little bit. So I started so sorry, everybody.
Uh-oh.
I started to get a little bit of butterflies that oh, okay, this is a real possibility. Like I could actually get the start here. And then about halfway through meetings on Friday night, I was like, okay, if I'm not the guy, then Coach Moore's just not going to tell me, I guess. And then after meetings on Friday night, he was like, yo, Ryder, you're the starter. I'm like, well, Coach, I'd hope so. I've taken everyone's rep all week long, so I'd really appreciate it. But yeah, no, I told my dad on Thursday night, like, Pops, if you can, I'd get on a plane. And my dad was in Detroit working with a client, and there were no flights from Detroit to Atlanta, Birmingham, or Nashville for cheaper than $2,200.
Wow.
And so my dad was like, he got in a rental car and he drove, I think it's 12, 13 hours, something along those lines. Got into my apartment at 3, blew up the air mattress and slept, and he was ready to rock. And then Mom got on a flight Friday and got in right before, I had to go to bed Friday night. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, but the sacrifices parents make is nothing short of amazing.
How much was that a motivation for you? I know your parents are going to do what they're going to do regardless, but just to see that type of sacrifice even before you step on the field and how much excitement there was there. I mean, did that give you a little extra jolt going into the matchup?
1,000%. Anytime I'm really close to my parents and idolize my father, and so every time Pops was there, we got to turn up a little bit. It's actually funny. Growing up, I used to hate when my parents were there because I wouldn't play as well.
Huh.
And so it's been a switch since I've gotten to my junior year of high school where I was like, all right, yeah, I play better when they're there now. So I'm just happy I could make the most of it.
I love that. So now they're the good luck charm, and they've proven, especially after that win on Saturday, that they are the good luck charm. But let's go back to what you said about finding out that you're going to be the starter. You're like, all right, I guess it's me now. So what was the conversations like then leading up to the game? You get on the field. What were some of the emotions? How are you feeling?
I think if you ask anybody in the facility, I'm a really confident individual. It's something that's kind of been taught to me since I was really young. In terms of conversations with Coach Mort and Coach Mitchell, it was just, hey, listen, you don't need to be Superman this week. You need to take what the defense gives you, and you play the game one play at a time. I played well, but there were still some plays that can show some growth. And I feel like, I didn't make the best of those plays, but I bounced right back every time there was something that I could do better. And I think that's what truly shows the colors of a quarterback at the end of the day.
And I think that was really the tail of the tape as well whenever it came to the win. It wasn't a big-time outright jump out to a big lead sort of upset where you hold on late. I mean, this was a back-and-forth football game, and that shows the tenacity from the Blazers as a whole and then from you at the quarterback position as well. I mean, what was the moment in the game, if there even was one, where you finally said, this is our matchup, we're going to have to take advantage of this opportunity?
I think when I hit strap on the seam in triple coverage, on that 3rd and 8, I was like, all right. I was like, we got a chance to put the lights out. Now, we liked the TV ratings to get up a little more than I would have. But, I feel like in that moment, I was like, all right, Ryder, like, go put the game away. This is the time. Like, let's go make the most of it. And, huge shout out to our defense. They did a great job, but we could have won the game on offense. So we got to be a little better in 4 minutes for sure.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, was how much credit defensively, and what was the biggest change on the defensive side of the ball in this matchup? Because the rankings weren't great coming in, but you slowed down a top 20, top 30 offense in the country in order to win this football game.
I think people just played loose, man. Like, I think it's the first time everybody just cut it loose and said, let's go play ball.
Yeah.
You can get wrapped up in the X's and O's and everything like that. I'll be the first to tell you, I am the X and O guy. Like, I live for it. But I feel like our defense just flew around on Saturday and played with a looseness and an aggressiveness that we've yet to see all year. And that's the defense I played all camp. Like, I was walking up and down the sideline, dapping up defensive guys, and I was like, bro, this is who I remember from fall camp. This is the defense that I was playing every day, because they gave us some fits in fall camp. And so I was just extremely grateful for those guys, their preparation and their work and how they played their tail off on Saturday. I mean, it makes a quarterback's job a lot easier.
How can you take this freeness that everybody played with on Saturday into the rest of your season? Like you said, you saw it in fall camp, you saw it again on the weekend. So how does it continue the rest of the season now?
I think Coach Mort does a great job of this. So much you can get locked up in winning and losing, right? But at the end of the day, it's like the cards are going to fall where they're going to fall. All you can do is prepare. The scoreboard is not a controllable outcome, right? There's just things that can vary the scoreboard. You can't control the refs. You can't control certain circumstances. Like, there's just things you can't control. And Coach Mort does a great job of being like, we'll play with relentless effort. We're going to be as physical as they come. And you're going to play north and south as a ball carrier and finish with a +2 mindset. And he's like, the cards are going to fall where they're going to fall. And I think that creates a mindset of us where it's like, we're going to go play for 60 minutes. And our whole mantra this past week was that 1998 Arkansas team where their mantra was 40 minutes of hell. Like, that was our calling card this week. Like, we were gonna play 60 minutes and see what happens and let the cards fall where they fall. And so when that happened, I feel like it just loosened up the guys, and I think we'll continue to carry that going into the rest of the season.
It was certainly one of the more entertaining games to watch all year long, and it was certainly one that I will never forget, watching that one unfold and how it went. I know you'll never forget it as well. Ryder Burton joining us here on All-American. Ryder, congratulations on the win. Thanks again for joining us, and good luck the rest of the year, because you got a whole lot left in front of you, both this year and then throughout your playing career as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, everybody.
All right, we're coming to the end of the show now, and we've got a couple segments left. Earlier in the show, I said I loved the East Carolina blackout uniforms, and that's not the first time I've said that this year. I love black unis. I even wore the all black today. I know I've got gray pants on, but I don't have black pants. I've got the all black shirt on today in celebration of some of the cool blackout uniforms that we've seen as a part of the American Conference this year. We did a blind rank 'em a couple weeks back.
Yep.
We're going to do it again.
Let's do it.
Are you ready? And let's
I'm
start
ready.
with East Carolina. Let's start with
All
the
right.
team that prompted really this thought process. And boy,
Oof.
these are clean.
We got to decide together. At least two.
At least two. I have a one that I'm already like going to fight you for, I think, at some point. in time, but I'm okay with putting this at 2.
All right, 2.
This is an
Sideline
incredible
at 2.
jersey. So
I
I'm going to say
purple too. The purple
it's
I like
beautiful.
it. Yeah, I
It
really
is
like
beautiful.
it.
And the script on the helmet. Come
Yeah,
on now.
I-
Pirates.
yeah.
Night at the Boneyard, too. That's a sick name for a theme. Congratulations, East Carolina. You're at number 2. All right, let's go to our second opportunity. South Florida.
Ooh. Okay, I like these. I'm thinking 4 or 5 though. They're not like my favorites.
I'm kind of on the same way.
Yeah.
I don't like how it's just black and white.
Yeah, like
I want
think,
some color to it.
and
some
they do
pop
like
to it.
such a good job overall with their uniforms. So
Absolutely.
like I think that's why I like maybe my expectations are too high. So
If-
I'm putting them at 4 or 5.
If these were their full-time uniforms, I think I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
Because they're sweet. But
Yeah.
that would never happen because, of course, the green and gold is too ideal. I'm going to put it at 4 with you.
All right, we'll put them at 4.
Put it at 4 because I just don't know what would be 5 at this point.
Yeah.
But that one's at 4.
That's why we blind rank things. It makes
Moving
it
on.
harder. Ooh.
Army.
Oh. I don't know if it's 1 for me, so it's 3 or 5.
I'm going to put it at 5.
Okay, Army at 5.
Just because we've seen Army, and that's part of their color scheme.
Yeah.
There's some fun ones here and there, and
Yeah.
I like this. If we had 10 jerseys overall on the season, I would probably put this in the top 10, but it's just number 5 out of these blackout uniforms.
All right, let's do it.
Moving on to number 4. I should have put this
Ooh.
at 5. I don't like these.
Really? I like
Yeah,
them.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's going to have to go at 4 then.
Or
do we
well,
beat-
it's at 3.
3,
Yeah, we
yeah.
have 3 open.
But yeah.
Ah,
Yeah, there's a
man.
really good cause behind this though, so that's good.
Was there?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Is this are these the cancer uniforms?
I believe so, right?
Okay,
No, yeah,
then
yeah,
that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, that saves it for me.
Okay, so that's 3.
3 is
Yeah.
totally fine.
3.
If there's a cause behind it, then that
Then
adds
we're
points.
Perfect.
I don't love the look, but that's
See, I like
who
it.
cares
and
about the
I
look
like
whenever
it,
it's
and
about
I like
that.
the cause. So
okay. So
3.
3's fine.
It actually works out really well.
We know what number 1 is, though. Come on now, North Texas.
You kind of set me up for that.
yes.
He kind of
See, I didn't produce this, so I didn't know they were last. I just knew I wanted to save the number 1 spot.
Yeah.
So whatever we had left was number 1, and if this one was going to pop up anywhere, I was going to give it number 1. We had the helmet on the show.
I think
we
he
had the
played me.
helmet on the show. I should have brought it again this week because I still haven't given it back to North Texas
Remember
Athletics.
when he promised that he was going to give it back?
I
And
haven't
I
done
like
it yet.
literally had to sit here and say, okay, now I feel okay that I'm not responsible for you. Now we're responsible that you didn't give it back yet. So
Haven't done it yet. Sorry, Mike. It'll come back at some point. Mike and Doug, it'll happen. I promise.
yeah,
I'll get it back.
you owe Doug.
I haven't been to Denton in a while. I haven't called any games up there. in a
You
minute.
owe Doug the helmet back, especially after calling him out on the show last week.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
But we're working on something for that Battle of the Birds. I still don't like it. It wasn't much of a battle this week though.
That's all right. All right.
55-17 North Texas.
Yes.
Sorry, UTSA.
All right. How about we talk about some top plays?
Let's get into some
I
top
love
plays.
top plays.
You
I
want to
can't-
start? You want me to start?
I'll start this.
Start
week.
it off.
All right,
Let's
let's
go.
take a look. Battle for the Bones has to be in here, and I know that UAB won, and we talked about it, but Memphis had some good moments in this game too, including Mr. Sutton Smith running this ball back, a 99-yard return, just making people miss. He's very fast.
Go all the way. Touchdown.
He did. There you go.
Very nice. 99 yards. Sutton Smith. He is a baller.
Baller.
Let's go to number 4. Speaking of not calling games in Denton, Texas, I would have been on the call for this, but I was working elsewhere. So, North Texas soccer, Mia Bernard from the top of the box, off the volley into the back of the net against Rice. This would put up North Texas up 1-0. They would ultimately draw at 2-2 against one of the better teams in the conference. John Hedlund and company trying to make a run at the end of the season, try and sneak their way into the American Conference Soccer Tournament, and this was a big point on the board in their season at home. What a play. Mia Bernard doing something special.
Whew. Let's go back to the Battle for the Bones because this game was just so much fun to watch.
I would love that.
I think we already talked about this play before. Ryder Burton to Iverson hooks. You said what? A statue?
I want a
needs to-
statue
You want
of
a
it.
statue.
It doesn't
of
have to be one of like the full-size statues that are
Okay.
like on the concrete base outside
All
of
right.
the stadium. Maybe even like one of those small ones that you put in the press box, you know?
Okay.
Like you walk in, it looks like it's like the size of the Heisman, but it's just a statue of this. I need one of those in the UAB press box.
Okay.
It's a beautiful stadium out there. You got some time. You can make it over the next few years, but that was an incredible program-defining win about the resilience of UAB Blazers football. I think that moment needs to be on the statue.
All right.
A mini
We'll-
statue.
We'll have to chat with UAB, see if they can get that in the box
We
for
can
next
make it
time
happen.
we visit there.
Yeah.
Number 2?
Well, number 2.
All right.
I forgot it was
soccer.
my turn, but now it's back to the pitch we go. Women's soccer for Memphis. How high are they in the stands right now? Number 4? Are you kidding me? Then that's why. That is a pro-level cross to the header, unmarked in the box, just outside that 6-yard box. Oh, this was a beaut. It was a beaut, as they call it on the soccer pitch. Memphis is rolling. Henderson with the header. She gets it done. Memphis wins this one big over a good East Carolina team.
Oh, Memphis just looks better and better every week. Ashley Henderson,
They're
Offensive Player of
dangerous.
the Week in the American, too.
Yeah, as she should be.
For reasons like that. All right, top play number 1. I saw this to My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. Somebody put the music in the background, and it's amazing, right? Because Jake Retzloff to Shaz Preston in the end zone. And Retzloff doesn't know what happened either. He's like,
I love that reaction.
I don't know, but we won the football game,
Yep.
and I'm going to roll with it.
I said it earlier in the show. Sometimes you would rather be good than lucky, or be lucky than good. Tulane's a little bit of both.
Yep.
A little bit of both. That's just what it is. And this is just, you got to stay with it until the whistle blows, and that is exactly what happened here. Magic in New Orleans down there at the bottom, I think that's perfect. A little yeoman magic to make it happen, and they got it done. And Retzloff just with the shoulder shrug. I'm in a tiny box here, but the shoulder shrug to get it done. I love it. Tulane with a big-time win in come-from-behind fashion against Army. And this is by far the best play of the week.
I still don't know how it happened. Like, I went back and watched it, and I'm like, okay.
And in that video, the slow-mo with the heart will go on, it was you could see the face all the way through of Preston just trying to, like, maneuver. And you can see his eyes get big and just try and keep with the football. The ball tracking ability, top-notch there, Tulane. Well done.
If you go back and watch it, too, the way that they timed it up and they cut to a shot of Summerall, like, throwing his hands up in slow motion when, like, Celine Dion hits the note. And I just die every time. If you haven't seen it, I believe it's on Tulane's social. Whoever made that video deserves a raise. I think I tweeted that out.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was incredible. So you love to see it.
Social post of the week. So not only top play of the week, but the social post of the week at the same time.
Yes, South Florida doing some cool things on social as well, too.
Well, this has been a fun show.
So much fun.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us inside Studio A. If you haven't already, go ahead and like, subscribe, follow. All you can do. M_Trivelpiece on social media, right?
Yes, you got it right.
M_Trivelpiece. I'm Kyle _Youmans. We will see you _ next week for more All-American from Studio A. See ya.